Over 5,000 fish in the last 3 days have come over Bonneville Dam. The lower Columbia is closed. The mid to upper Columbia is now open and in full swing of the season right now this week. It's going down right now as I am talking to you guys. Fish are being caught on the Columbia River this very second. Bam, fish on, I guarantee it. So prawn rigs, spinners are kind of the go-to setup down there in those lower to mid Columbia areas. But a secret weapon and something that you guys should definitely add to your arsenal is a Brad's Killer KCP. And in this video, we are going to go over 2 different perfect brines for your tuna that you can utilize at Drano Lake and around those fisheries, as well as the upper fisheries, Wenatchee, Hanford Reach, Wells Dam area, and Brewster. Stay tuned for this Walking on Water tutorial. Let's get right into setting up our tuna for this beautiful Brad's KCP. Alright guys, first things first. Shake up your tuna fish, baby. Shake it up, okay? You want tuna in oil. Tuna and oil, guys. Tuna and oil, tuna and oil, tuna and oil. Don't go buy the Star Kiss pouches that you can snack on with your crackers if it doesn't have oil in it. You need the oil so it absorbs what we're putting into it, and not only absorbs, it leaves that scent trail. If you got tuna and anything but oil, it's just dry tuna, it'll absorb it. It's going to flake out of that KCP or the mini cut plug by Brad's Killer Fishing, baby, really fast. So you want the oil to leave that nice scent trail in the water. So, tuna and oil. If you can't find tuna and oil, go buy some of that crappy tuna, the dry tuna, or go buy some tuna and water, strain it out, and buy yourself some vegetable oil, and put it in the tuna in a baggie. Let it sit there for a couple minutes, and then you can add your scents that we're going to add to these here today, guys. These are tried and true methods. They are very effective down at Drano as well as fisheries beyond. And that's what we're talking about today. We're going over tuna for Drano and those kind of fisheries down in that area. And then we're going to also talk about future fisheries as the fish move up past the Dalles Dam and up towards Wells Dam. So let's get into that. First, tuna and oil. Obviously, we're going to open it up, okay? Open, 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 open. Okay. Then we are going to locate some kind of knife. Oh my gosh, it squirted. Tip number 1, get a good can opener. Good gosh. There we go. Now we're all popped up. First of all, actually figure out how to open your can of tuna. Oh, the fish are going to love that, guys. The fish are going to love that. Tuna and oil, guys. This is exactly what you need. Let's get right into it. Okay, first, 2 containers. Why are we doing 2 containers? Because we are going to do a Drano Lake KCP, which if you're wondering why I'm saying KCP constantly, it's a Kokanee cut plug, okay? You can utilize during the springtime right now, this very second, tomorrow, if you're going fishing tomorrow and you happen to watch this today, you should go to the store and buy a Brad's Killer Fishing KCP Kokanee cut plug and run this for spring Chinook with size 1 hooks off the back of it. I'm telling you, this is a killer, and it's an underestimated killer in the springtime, the early spring, for these beautiful spring Chinook. And I utilize it one of every time I go out, and I have very good success on these things right here. Okay, so Brad's Killer KCP, and that's why we're going over the Drano tuna first. And this is the piece of equipment you're going to want to pair with that. I wouldn't run the cut plug size like this one right here. I wouldn't run something like that. Definitely not. Spring Chinook tend to like the little bit smaller, subtler presentation baits, not the big, aggressive. You might be able to get away with the mini, but I still think that's too big. So I opt in for the KCP. This is the mini Brad's Killer cut plug, and this is the KCP, the Kokanee cut plug. And so when I'm going for springers, I like to use the KCP like this one right here, guys. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this off to the side now that we talked about the KCP. We're going to dump half of our tuna into this one. Okay. That was about all of it, but we'll mix that together here. Then we're going to dump the other half into our other container just like that. I love these little containers. Screw-on lids. They don't spill in your cooler. There we go. Half and half, just like that. Perfect. Okay, so tuna's in the container. Now, let's talk about how and why and what I utilize down at a Drano type fishery versus what I would utilize at a little bit higher up fishery, okay, in the water system. Once the water starts getting a little bit warmer, a little bit later in the season, the fish are higher up in the Columbia River, they're offshooting into tributaries and so on and so forth. That's this tuna right here, and we will talk about that in just 1 second, guys. So first things first, procure products, okay? And this is the Drano and Drano-esque type fisheries in that general area, okay? So the first one that I'm going to utilize, because you got to think, guys, these fish are coming from the lower Columbia, they're coming from the tidal water, they're hitting that first dam, Bonneville Dam, and they've just passed it, right? Their senses are telling them, and they're still instinctually, you know, basically fresh right out of the ocean. They're picking up all these different scents from food and bait and different kinds of bait fish in the ocean and the tidal water. And I believe in my mind, and why this setup and this tuna brine is so successful is because they still have all those things, the baits, the instinctual sense, and all these other things that they just experienced literally not even 100 miles down the river in the ocean. So the first one, of course, is procure herring oil, okay? That is my number one thing that I'm going to put in my Drano Lake Tuna Brine, and I'm going to give it a nice, probably a little bit of like a half teaspoon of tuna oil in there, of herring oil in there. Then, what is the go-to setup that people love to use down at Drano? What is that? Oh, wow. I think it's a prawn spinner of some sort. So, of course, shrimp and prawn oil definitely belongs in that tuna brine. We're going to give it another half teaspoon just like that, and we're going to set that off to the side. Then, what is another bait fish that these fish eat while they're in the ocean? That is a sardine, okay? This, if you can't tell, is a very bait-oriented type tuna brine, and the reason I'm bait-orienting this tuna brine is simply for the fact their instincts are still kicking from all the bait that they've been chewing on and munching on literally not even 100 miles down the river system. So we're so close, and we're not that close, but we're close enough to where these fish haven't really, in my mind, started triggering the aggression bite, right? It's, let me snap at this just to get it out of my way. I believe in my mind a little bit that these fish still are feeding because they're so fresh out of those tidal situations. So that's why I opt in for a triple bait brine when I'm talking a Drano type fishery, just because where it's geographically located on the map away from the ocean. And these fish are instinctual fish. They travel off instincts all the way up to their spawning point from a little tiny baby fish. So if they're able to do that with instincts, they're able to still pick up on these scents, especially smelling parts per billion. They can 100%, in my mind, still pick up these scents that they were just actively feeding on not even a month ago. Okay, so a little bit of sardine. Okay, another teaspoon like that. We're going to close that one off. Then we're going to grab a little mixer, and we're just going to mix it up, guys. Super simple, super easy, okay? Now, we are talking about spring Chinook, and this is definitely an optional option that you guys could utilize, but I like grabbing a little bit of the badass bait dye from Procure as well. Chartreuse is a springer killer, and so just adding just a little bit of that dye, a couple drips, just to color that tuna just a little bit. So when I have it in my KCP that I'm running down there at Drano Lake, let's add a little bit more so we can get that nice and colored. Okay. Just give it a little mixy mix. Looks like some throw up now. You guys want some guacamole? I know the salmon do, 100%. Okay, so now that we've got this all mixed up, this is a perfect tuna for Drano Lake, okay guys? So how we're gonna do this is simply, I always wear gloves, but for today, special occasion, I'm not wearing gloves, okay? I'm gonna show you really quick the most effective way to stuff your tuna. And I've heard Scott from Brad's Killer say it a ton of times, and I'm a firm believer in what he's saying just because I'm super particular about how my bait spins in the water, okay? And obviously everybody has their own methods, and so this is just me doing it how I like to do it and how I've seen myself catch fish before. But if you have your method, that's great too. So we're gonna grab just a little bit of tuna right here, okay? I like to pack it in, and I'm not an overstuffer, guys, okay? I don't really believe that you need to overstuff tuna at all in these KCPs. First of all, it's a very small bait, so overstuffing it really isn't going to do a whole lot for you because you're simply going to just lose it all as soon as you put it in the water, okay? So I stuff just enough in there so I can fill the gap and fill that space and make that shape of that KCP so when it's spinning in the water, it's not getting any resistance, okay? A tiny little bit of a gap is okay, and now you might say, now that's definitely overstuffing, okay? No, overstuffing is really when you're forcing that rubber band back on and the back of that KCP is open and you have to force it down like that. This is closing fairly naturally. There's a tiny little bit of a gap when I let off of it, but there's not much. So don't completely overstuff your KCP, guys, or your Brad's Killer Superbaits at all. Just for the simple fact, you want those things that have the best action possible in the water with the best possible tuna brine that you can possibly put in it. So again, guys, the Drano Lake, I'm going to put this tuna back in here. The Drano Lake KCP Tuna Brine, shrimp and prawn, herring oil, sardine, as well as a little bit of green badass bait dyes. And this is some spring Chinook guacamole, baby. And that is absolutely going to get you guys on some fish down there at Drano Lake. And trust me, guys, there's a lot of fish coming in, and everybody down there is going to be running some sort of prawn. So if you want to separate yourself from the group, put a KCP on, utilize this amazing guacamole brine, and I'm telling you, you might just catch the biggest fish on the water. If you guys enjoy these videos at all, smash the like button, go ahead and share it out to your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification up here, guys. It helps me out a ton. I love making these videos for you guys. It's been a good year so far, and they're just going to keep on rolling. So I hope you guys stick around and enjoy a lot more content, as well as the Walking on Water business page on Facebook. A lot of long-form content there. And join the Walking on Water Fishing private Facebook group. Say what's up, talk to me, ask questions, whatever you want to do. Find out about future trips, so on and so forth. But let's get into that second brine. Okay, guys. Now, that we have gotten through the Drano brine, let's get into another extremely effective brine for a little bit higher up in the river system as these fish start moving beyond the Dalles Dam. Okay, so you got we're talking late spring to early summer-esque type brine, and so this is all the way from the Dalles Dam all the way realistically up to Wells Dam in Brewster Pool as well. Just a super effective way to go out and target these fish. And we're going to start out with none other than our Procure Slamola powder, baby. Okay, we're going to grab this, and I took this off earlier, but I didn't get it off. We're going to take the little white piece off right here. Boom, pop that out. Okay, pop this back on. Then I like to use about 1 tablespoon of this for my corn. Man, I've been making too many tuna brine too many corn brine videos. So we're going to throw this in the tuna just like that. 1 tablespoon of the Procure Slamola powder, baby. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to utilize some of the same scents, guys, okay? But we are going to skip one scent. We are going to take out the shrimp and prawn oil right here, and we're actually just going to go with a herring / sardine oil. And the reason, it's almost for the same reason that I talked about instincts. Am I going to re-add 2 of these to the upper Columbia style when you're using these Brad's Killer Fishing cut plugs? Is as soon as that water warms back up above 50 degrees, that's when your style of fishing starts to change. Okay? That's when the spinners start coming back out to play. That's when the Brad's Killers start coming out to play. And when you're talking about a little bit above Wells Dam and below Wells Dam and all up to Brewster, the KCP, the Kokanee cut plug, the mini cut plug, and just the cut plug itself become extremely effective, as well as the prawnless spinner, okay? That's where the 3.5, spinner comes into play, as well as the inline spinner comes into play. And then obviously the Brad's Killers like we just talked about. So I'm going to adjust what I'm using for scents, because now that the prawns are out, I'm no longer going to utilize the prawns. Now I'm going to utilize what we're going to be actually using when the water starts to warm back up. And a herring-esque fishy bait type as well, guys, as well. Let's not get this wrong for just 1 second. A little garlic in here will go a long, long ways, okay? So, slammin' salmon is a great one that you could put in here, but I do this my way. I do this without garlic initially. If I'm not getting the results that I want, then I sprinkle a little bit of garlic on a couple of them as I'm putting them in the water, or I shoot a little bit of that garlic bloody tuna on there. And if that seems to work, then I go ahead and I incorporate a little bit of garlic. But I never start out with it just because the water is warm. I understand once the water's warm, that garlic scent really starts picking up pace in the water system. But for me, I just like to utilize what I know is my go-to, and I'm hopefully this can become, or you guys can go out and try this, and it's successful for you guys as well. So we're just going to give this one a little bit of mix with a little bit of that sardine and a little bit of that herring oil, and then that 1 tablespoon of the Slamola powder by ProCure, and we're just going to mix it up, guys. All right, guys, so it's all mixed up, and this is what I would use above the Dalles Dam and beyond once those fish get a little bit higher in the water system and that water starts warming up, guys. These are 2 absolute extremely effective ways to target fish on the Columbia River, and this being a right now go-to setup down there at that Drano Lake-esque type fishery, and then this being the perfect combination for above Dalles Dam and beyond. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Walking on Water. It was my pleasure to bring you 2 of my favorite tuna brines for Brad's Killer Fishing cut plugs, baby. I'll see you guys on the water. Tight lines. Check you next time.